I was Maria Gonzalez, a 35-year-old attorney specializing in reproductive rights, fiercely independent and unapologetically child-free. My life was a carefully constructed rebellion against the expectations my mother had tried to carve into me since girlhood, expectations about motherhood, submission, and legacy. I grew up watching my younger sister Daniela become the golden child, the willing vessel for our mother's obsession with grandchildren. By 30, Daniela had 4 children, her body a patchwork of stretch marks and stress fractures, her smile always half hollow. Meanwhile, I'd built a career fighting for women like her, women who didn't know they had choices until someone like me stepped in. But that distinction between my sister and me was intolerable to our mother, Patricia Gonzalez, who believed she could will her dreams into existence, even if it meant forging documents, manipulating doctors, and gaslighting her own daughter. The nightmare began the day I fainted in court. I'd skipped breakfast, overworked myself preparing for a landmark case involving coerced surrogacy, but when I came to, I was in a sterile hospital room, and my mother was at my bedside with crocodile tears and false concern. "They say you're overworked, sweetheart," she cooed, brushing hair from my forehead. "You've been under so much stress. Maybe it's your hormones." That single phrase, "maybe it's your hormones," unraveled my world. Without my knowledge, she'd arranged a psych evaluation through a longtime friend of hers, Dr. Whitfield, a licensed reproductive psychiatrist with a disturbing track record I'd later uncover. My objections were brushed aside as symptomatic of denial. Within a day, I was placed on a 72-hour psychiatric hold, not because I was a danger to myself or others, but because I'd failed to meet her expectations of femininity and motherhood. The diagnosis? Reproductive grief-induced delusional disorder. A made-up label to justify controlling me. My mother had already filed for temporary conservatorship, citing my inability to make sound decisions regarding my health and future. The moment I saw her signature on the legal papers, shaking but forged, I knew this was war. She wanted my eggs. She wanted a piece of my body. And if I didn't comply, she'd take it anyway, cloaked in the legal and medical systems I thought I understood better than anyone. The walls of the psychiatric facility were painted a soft, childlike yellow, clearly meant to pacify, but to me they pulsed like warning signs. Caution, manipulation ahead. I sat in mandatory group therapy sessions, surrounded by women with a wide range of diagnoses, some valid, some not. I listened, I observed, and I said very little. I needed time to figure out how deep this betrayal went. My mother visited daily, always with soft reassurances and hard smiles, bringing me prenatal vitamins, baby name books, and unsolicited pamphlets from a clinic called Blessed Beginnings. "They have a lovely couple waiting for an egg donor just like you," she said one afternoon, clutching my hand like a stage mother with a pageant princess. That night, I lay awake in the narrow bed, planning not my escape. That would only prove her point, but something far more dangerous: compliance. I knew the system. I had studied it, fought within it, and now I had to manipulate it from inside. I would become what they wanted to see. A daughter who'd had a change of heart, who embraced her feminine destiny, who was healed by her mother's love. Every word would burn my throat. Every tear would be fake. But it was the only way out. I had 3 days to prove I was cured of the terrible affliction of not wanting children. 3 days to perform the most convincing role of my life. The irony wasn't lost on me. To win back my autonomy, I had to pretend I wanted to give it up. To be declared sane, I had to act delusional. I began the performance the next morning. In therapy, I raised my hand and shared a fake dream about holding a baby. I cried on cue, let my voice crack in all the right places. Dr. Whitfield was practically beaming. "This is a major breakthrough, Maria," she said, scribbling furiously into her notes. "You're beginning to understand what you really want." When my mother came for her visit that day, I wore the maternity dress she brought and rubbed my stomach like Daniela used to. "I'm sorry I fought you," I whispered. "I see now that you were only trying to help." For a moment, her eyes searched mine, and I thought she'd see through the act. But then she hugged me tight and said, "That's my girl." That night, Dr. Whitfield told me she'd recommend early release. Your mother has already scheduled an appointment at Blessed Beginnings for tomorrow, she said. The hearing for the conservatorship was also tomorrow. I had less than 24 hours to sabotage her plan and reclaim my life. The next morning, I was discharged at exactly 9 a.m., just like Dr. Whitfield had promised, her parting words filled with performative warmth. I'm proud of you, Maria. This is the beginning of your new life. My mother stood outside the hospital doors, holding a bouquet of lilies and a gift bag that clinked faintly. Prenatal vitamins, she said with a tearful smile. Just to prepare your body. I thanked her, slipping into the front seat of her car while secretly texting my emergency contact, one of my oldest legal colleagues, a fierce conservatorship litigator named Kendra. I had left her a breadcrumb trail in my personal email the day before. Mom, I said gently as we pulled away from the hospital, could we stop at my apartment before the clinic? I want to feel normal again, take a real shower, change into something nice. She hesitated, her knuckles whitening on the steering wheel. We have an appointment, she said tightly. I turned to her, channeling every ounce of manipulative sweetness I'd observed from Daniela over the years. Please. I want this to be special. You were right, and I want to do it right. Her expression softened. Just enough. Okay, but don't dawdle. Inside my apartment, I locked the bathroom door, pulled out my hidden phone, and called Kendra. Maria, she whispered. I got your email. The hearing is at 2 o'clock, right? Yes, I said, keeping my voice low. But I won't be there. My mother will have me at Blessed Beginnings. I need you to file an emergency objection. Use my work email. The folder marked personal has everything, signed forms, timestamps, recordings. Kendra promised she'd do what she could, even without my physical presence. When I emerged from the bathroom, my mother had rearranged my apartment. Law books had been removed from the shelves and replaced with baby books she'd brought. This is more fitting, she said proudly, handing me a soft, pink dress I'd never seen before. Something floral and feminine for your big day. I changed, dead behind the eyes. At Blessed Beginnings, we were greeted like VIPs. The waiting room smelled of lavender and fear. A nurse named Patricia escorted me to a side room for blood work, her voice syrupy. Your mom says you're excited to help a deserving family. Very, I lied, smiling so hard it hurt. At 2:15, I asked to use the restroom. Instead, I slipped out a side door and ordered a rideshare. My heart pounded as I jumped into the back seat and directed the driver to the courthouse, just 10 minutes away. I made it by 2:25, sprinting past security and bursting into the courtroom mid-hearing. The judge looked up startled. Miss Gonzalez? I'm here of my own free will, Your Honor, I gasped, and I want to contest this conservatorship. My mother turned, her mouth falling open in horror. She's supposed to be at the clinic. The judge raised an eyebrow. Interesting, he said dryly. Kendra waved me over to the respondent's table, handing me a legal pad and nodding. I'd made it, but the real battle was just beginning. My mother's lawyer launched into a polished recitation of Dr. Whitfield's diagnosis, citing my emotional instability, my supposed fertility grief, and my newfound desire to become a mother. Then it was our turn. Kendra laid out everything, the forged medical consent forms, the suspicious timing of the psychiatric hold, the pattern of coercion leading to a fertility clinic appointment scheduled the exact hour of the hearing. This is not care, she said firmly. It's reproductive trafficking dressed up as concern. When it was my turn to speak, I told the court the truth. I don't have fertility grief, I said calmly. I have a mother who's built her identity around controlling my body. When I wouldn't give her what she wanted, she drugged me, institutionalized me, and tried to hand me over to a fertility clinic like a breeder cow. My mother broke down sobbing, clutching at her pearls. I just wanted grandchildren. Is that so wrong? You have 5 grandchildren, I said, turning to her. Through Daniela, who can barely walk because of what you've done to her. The courtroom fell silent. The judge, grim-faced, reviewed the evidence one final time. The petition for conservatorship is denied, he announced. Furthermore, I'm granting a permanent restraining order. Miss Patricia Gonzalez, you are to have no contact with your daughter, effective immediately. My mother collapsed into her chair, wailing, while her lawyer quietly gathered their things. I walked out of the courtroom with Kendra, victorious, but emotionally gutted. Outside, I spotted Daniela in the parking lot, surrounded by her children. She was visibly pregnant again and struggled to get out of her car. "How could you?" she shouted. "Mom loves us." "She loves what your body can do for her," I replied. Her oldest daughter, a 6-year-old girl, clung to her skirt. "Why is Grandma crying?" the little girl asked. Daniela had no answer. And that, I realized, was the tragedy. After the courthouse, Kendra and I sat in her car in silence, watching as my mother was helped into her attorney's vehicle, still sobbing, still unable to comprehend that she had lost, that her control was broken. I exhaled, long and slow, and for the first time in weeks, I wasn't pretending. "What now?" Kendra asked gently. I stared out the windshield, watching Daniela load her 5 children into her battered van, her face pale and tight. "Now," I said, "I report blessed beginnings to the medical board. I start building a civil case. And I make sure no other woman ends up where I was." Kendra nodded. That night, James came to my apartment. I hadn't expected him to show. Not after everything, not after how easily he'd believed the lies. But when I opened the door, he looked at me with a mixture of shame and relief. "I almost believed them," he admitted. "The texts, the photos, the stories. It all seemed so real." "That's what gaslighting does," I said, motioning for him to sit. "They use just enough truth to make the lies feel grounded." We talked for hours. Not romantically. We weren't there yet, maybe never would be, but humanly. Kindly. We untangled the knots, sorted through the wreckage. He slept on the couch, and I didn't feel afraid. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel alone. Over the next few weeks, my life slowly recalibrated. I filed formal complaints against Dr. Whitfield, Blessed Beginnings, and every clinic staffer I could name. My law firm welcomed me back after I shared the full, horrifying truth, backed by documents, emails, and testimony. Some colleagues apologized. Some avoided me. But the important ones stood by my side. Clients reached out, many of them women I'd once advocated for. Some told me they'd been through something similar, quiet, invisible coercion dressed as maternal concern. We weren't anomalies, we were patterns. Daniela gave birth 6 weeks later to her 6th child. Word trickled down that the delivery had been traumatic. She nearly died from hemorrhaging. The doctors warned her, no more pregnancies. I wanted to feel vindicated, but all I felt was sorrow. She was still my sister, no matter what she'd done, no matter how thoroughly she'd parroted our mother's worldview. She'd been shaped, molded, and ultimately broken by the same system I had escaped. About 3 months after the hearing, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I hesitated, then answered. "Aunt Maria?" A small voice whispered. "It's Emma. Mommy's sick again, and Grandma keeps talking about when I get older and can have babies. I don't want to be like Mommy." My heart clenched. I had fought for my freedom, but now I saw the next generation lining up to be sacrificed. "You don't have to be like Mommy," I said gently. "You can be whatever you want. Can I see sometime? Mommy says you're dangerous, but you don't sound dangerous." I hesitated. "I'd love that. But we'll need to make sure it's safe and okay with the grown-ups first." It wasn't okay, of course. Not with Daniela. But Emma kept calling, using friends' phones, school office lines, whispering secrets through stolen moments. I became her secret confidant, her voice in the darkness. The aunt who said no one had the right to decide her future for her. 6 months later, I saw Daniela again, at a family funeral on our father's side. She was in a wheelchair, her body finally refusing to cooperate with her martyrdom. We locked eyes across the church. For the first time in years, I didn't see the handmaiden our mother created. I saw my little sister, the girl who used to crawl into my bed during storms. She didn't speak. But she didn't look away either. And maybe that was something. A year had passed since I walked out of the courtroom free, and still, the aftershocks rippled through my life in quiet waves. I had taken my story public, not for attention, but for awareness. I wrote articles, gave interviews under pseudonyms, and joined advocacy groups pushing for reforms in reproductive coercion laws. What happened to me wasn't rare. It was just rarely spoken of. One morning, I was sitting in a quiet coffee shop near the courthouse, reviewing notes for a pending civil case against Blessed Beginnings, when a young woman approached me. She looked familiar in that uneasy way, haunted eyes, posture too polite, like she was apologizing for taking up space. "You're Maria Gonzalez," she said. I nodded slowly. "You helped my friend escape her family," she continued. "They were trying to force her to be a surrogate for her sister. She got out because of you." I felt something settle in my chest, a quiet sense of purpose. "I'm glad she's safe," I said. The girl hesitated, twisting her sleeve. "My mom's been planning my fertility treatments for years. I'm supposed to start injections next week." She looked up at me, trembling. "But after reading what happened to you, I think I want to run instead." I reached into my bag and handed her a card. "Call me if you need help."
No judgment.
Just support. She took the card with both hands like it was a lifeline. After she left, I sat there for a long time thinking about cycles. How they entrench themselves in bloodlines, rituals, and expectations until someone dares to break them. And how breaking them hurts, not just the person doing the breaking, but everyone clinging to the illusion that the cycle was ever love in the first place. That evening, as I was brushing my teeth, my phone buzzed. A text from Emma. She was 7 now and had become a stealthy little ninja with her mother's phone. "Grandma says I'm going to be a wonderful mother someday," the text read. "I told her I want to be a lawyer like you instead." She got really mad. I laughed, then cried a little, then typed back, "Good for you, kiddo. Stand your ground." The war wasn't over. It never really ends when the battlefield is your family, your body, your identity. But battles had been won. Boundaries had been set. The clinic was shut down. Dr. Whitfield lost her license. My mother's reach had been legally severed from my life. And girls like Emma, like the coffee shop stranger, were beginning to understand they had options beyond what their bodies could produce for others. I had lost so much: time, relationships, a sense of safety, but I had gained something rarer: truth, voice, and the will to keep fighting. And sometimes that had to be enough. Thank you for listening to my story. If it moved you, made you think, or reminded you of someone who needs to hear it, please like, comment, and subscribe to Kindle Stories Official for more powerful, real-life narratives. Your support helps us share the voices that too often go unheard.